Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host as always, Daniel Levy, your co-host Shaq. We're going to be talking UFC Stockholm, Alexander Gustafsson versus Anthony Smith, and Shaq is going down this Saturday in Stockholm, Sweden. Alexander Gustafsson in another main event, this time against the former number one contender, Anthony Smith.
Alexander's getting that hometown fight. Sometimes he's come through in Sweden, sometimes he hasn't. He's fighting a habitual upsetter. Guy that kind of flies under the radar a lot, and it's a big fight. You know, Gustafsson's 3-4 in his last 7 fights. They're both coming off this title fight to John Jones, in which they both got dominated. You know, so whoever wins this fight, man, they can position themselves right back in a title contention, and whoever loses, man, it's pretty much over.
And you know, both guys got dominated, but one man was closer to winning than the other. And let me explain what I mean. My boy Alexander Gustafsson got pounded out. He had zero chance, but Anthony Smith could have taken a little DQ and could have been wearing that belt today. He elected not to.
he could have got that belt, man. But you know, it is what it is. Now he's a underdog again, another big underdog. Now he's in Sweden, and man, that arena in Sweden's really big, man. How many? I think it's like 50,000 seated. You know, so
basically it's like a football stadium.
Yeah, it's a football stadium. So it's gonna be a lot of pressure on those guys fighting that are from Sweden and those Euros in general, man.
Man, there's gonna be a good card. A lot of international matchups. A lot of prospects, some newcomers, some veterans, everything across the board. I expect some violence. I expect some finishes. You know we already got an underdog play on this card. Go to bestfightpicks.com for that. And Shaq, let's break down this whole card start to finish, because first up, in the lightweight division, we got Joel Alvarez. He's 15-2, and Danilo Belluardo is 12-3. Currently, they got Joel Alvarez minus 115 and Danilo Belluardo is minus 105. Well, Shaq, you got the wrestler in Danilo Belluardo taking on the opportunistic submission guy in Joel Alvarez. My question here is Danilo about to grind this out, or is Joel going to catch him with something?
Both these guys in general are just pretty low level in terms of the 155-pound division. I'm not going to say both these guys from a year from now aren't going to be here, but they got a lot of ways to get better, and they're at the bottom. They're the bottom of the barrel at 155. Let's just be honest here. Alvarez, he's coming off that fight against Ismagulov. You know, it wasn't a bad showing. Ismagulov's clearly just a completely different caliber fighter than him. But the fact that Alvarez, from the scene that he comes from, Spain, some of the stuff that he did early on in his career, the flopping to his back, it seems like he's caught up, somewhat. And Belluardo, you could say the same thing for him. You know, he was out there, got knocked out in 3 or 4 fights, 4 years ago or so. He bounced back. Now it seems like he's
2017 wasn't 4 years ago.
Agent McKee was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But in the poll and all that stuff. But he bounced back. He seems like he's found his niche in there. It seems like he knows what to do to win now. Seems like Alvarez probably has the better technique on the feet, but you know, it's not really dangerous. He's just really tall. You know, he gives you it's a little difficult because he's 6'3", not really much firepower. The Ismagulov fight, Ismagulov didn't really try to take him down, but Bellardo's definitely gonna try to take him down. Can he hold him down? It's tough to say, man. You really don't know too much about both guys. I kind of favor Danilo just because I feel like he's going to be the aggressor in this matchup. I feel like, though Alvarez has been fighting the takedowns a little better, I feel like the way Danilo's going to get in there might make him, Joel, resort back to some old tendencies, man. So I think Bellardo's going to win 2 out of 3 rounds. I feel like it's going to be a tough fight. I feel like the 3rd round might go Alvarez's way. He's really long. But I got to go with the Italian to win a split decision on EuroTurf.
Yeah, I mean, listen, both of these guys wouldn't even win the NFC title, and there's a reason this is the first fight of the night. So you got Danilo Belluardo, the wrestler, taking on the opportunistic finisher in Joel Alvarez, and all of Joel's fights. I mean, if you go back and you watch some of those early ones he had, man, some of the ugliest shit you've ever seen. 0 takedown defense. Basically relies on the fact that he's 6'3", he can throw up triangles, and submitted a lot of his regional opponents that way. But man, with Danilo Belluardo, talk about some scary knockout losses, man. As you mentioned, there was a point there where he got knocked out in 3 of his 4 fights, and the last one was just a vicious, brutal, stiff KO where, you know, we thought he died, man. We were like, oh, fuck. Like, you know, it was very uncomfortable to watch. But since that point, he put his head down. He's on a 6-fight win streak. And I mean, the guy is pretty damn solid on top. Now, I know he's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm not sure under who, so, I don't really know what the deal is there, but he's allegedly a brown belt, so that should be able to neutralize the game of Joel Alvarez. But the thing with Joel Alvarez is Danilo Belluardo falls in line with all the regional opponents that Joel Alvarez has been beating. It's that level opponent. So, while I do think that Joel is not going to come out here and win a decision because he doesn't have the style to win a fight from start to finish, I do think that he can catch him with something along the way, whether it's a knee on a takedown entry, whether it's a triangle choke, a darce, a guillotine. I see Joel Alvarez losing the entire fight until he catches Danilo Belluardo and finishes him. So I'm going to go Joel Alvarez. Next up in the light heavyweight division, we got Devin Brown Bear Clark. He's 9-3, and Darko Stosic is 13-1. Currently, they got Devin Clark minus 120. The comeback on Darko, Lord of Darkness, Stosic is plus 100. Well, Shaq, they keep doing the same thing with Devin Clark. My boy Sturkov had to pull out that fight, but they weren't like, you know what, Devin, since you flew all the way to Prague, we'll give you an easy fight this time. Now it's like, guess what? Fly all the way back to Europe. And
actually in Russia.
Since you didn't get to have that fight in Russia, guess what, Devin? Now fly all the way back to Stockholm and take on Darko Stosic. Who you got here?
Yeah, I see a lot of people on Clark this week, and I get it. He's a good athlete. He's a big wrestler. Big power. He dropped Rakic his last fight, but technically speaking, man, the guy is trash. He's got nothing technical about him whatsoever. He's just a good athlete. So occasionally, he'll have glimpses of dropping a guy, or he's not really seeing the results, man. He's still having the same issues he had early on in his career when he was out here getting knocked out by Alex Nicholson at 185 pounds. His wins are against Josh Stansberry and Jake Collier. Collier's on a USADA suspension. Stansberry, I don't even know who that guy is. And then now he went in there against Jan Blachowicz. That was the test to see if he was at that level of 205, and he completely wasn't, man. The guy was lunging over to the point where Jan was able to get a standing rear naked choke against the fence. Like, the guy's, like I said, he's got nothing technical about him, and he was able to get the win over Rodriguez. Props to him. Allegedly, Rodriguez says that he didn't have a strength and conditioning coach, and, he was able to get the better of the wrestling, and he did his thing there. But the Rakic fight, he dropped Rakic with the left foot. Could that be a step in the right direction? Possibly. But I feel like Darko Stosic, although he's definitely not the athlete that Clark is, I feel like he's got a solid base, man. I feel like this guy goes out here and does his job in comparison to a Devin Clark who's very spastic in there. We know that one little shot behind the ear, he might go down. He might get in a standing rear naked choke.
Might eat a backhand.
might go down on a backhand. Like, the guy's all over the place. I feel like Stosic, he's got good jabs, he's got good low kicks, and for a guy with big muscles, man, the guy manages cardio fairly well. So I like Darko Stosic. I think he might struggle early just because Clark is a serious athlete. I will give him that. But in rounds 2 and 3, when Clark starts looking real skittish out there and he starts turning sideways and looking for ways out, I feel like Darko will knock him out. So I'm going to go with Darko by an early third round knockout.
Yeah, I mean, you said it well. Devin Clark, he's very athletic, but he's so spastic with his stand-up. He really doesn't have much direction in there. And I think the reason why so much action is coming in on him to the point where he was a dog, now he's the favorite, is because people are overhyping the fact that he dropped Rakic twice in that fight. And Darko Stosic, I know he's kind of stiff. I know he's kind of a musclehead. But like you said, man, the guy keeps his hands up and is pretty damn technical. He doesn't force anything, doesn't do anything unnecessary. Just has a very solid meat and potatoes type game. And if he doesn't do, some kind of young mistake here, I see him coming out here and knocking out a guy like Devin Clark. Devin, it was fun while it lasted. He got to be John Jones punching bag at Greg Jackson's MMA, you know what I mean? And now it's time to take another canvas nap, and I'm going to take Darko Stosic inside the distance here. Now, next up in the women's featherweight division, we got Duda Santana. She's 3-0, and Bay Malecki is 1-0. Currently, they got Bay Malecki minus 125. The comeback on Eduarda Santana is plus 105. Well, I'm going to hit up our good friend Chael Sonnen for some analysis on this matchup.
I don't really understand what the big deal is. One of them's a punching bag, and the other one I just ignore. He's really irrelevant, but...
So, I think that was some pretty on-point analysis by Chael Sonnen. Now, next up in the lightweight division, we got Nick Hein. He's 14-4, and Frank Camacho is 21-7. Currently, they got Frank Camacho minus 115, and Nick Hein is minus 105. Well, Shaq, Nick Hein is very good at going out here and winning these decisions, and Frank Camacho throws very hard, throws some concussive blows. Which way you leaning?
I think Nick Hein used to be really good at winning those decisions. I think, both guys have good fighting spirit. I have the utmost respect for both of them. It seems like ever since Nick Hein kind of had that botched attempt to go to 145 pounds, in which he was actually supposed to welcome Zabit Magomed Sharipov to the UFC, but then he bounced back up to 155. He had that big surgery. I'm not necessarily sure what it was. But there's really not much shame in his losses. I would feel like Hein's issues are most sort of that father time has just caught up with him, man. I don't think it's necessarily a skill thing. In fact, I think overall he's probably a better fighter than Frank Camacho. I just think that his durability has definitely weakened since he was a 6-1 fighter. He used to be 6-1 or 5-1, 6-1, whatever it was, and now he's what, 3 in a row or just two? Two in a row, and in the fight before that against Yasuki Kasuya, a big favorite. I actually bet on him in that fight, and he was, I don't want to say he clearly won, but it just wasn't the performance you were expecting from a guy like Hein. It just shows that he's on a decline. His fight with Tai Hyun Bang wasn't that impressive either. I feel like Frank Camacho, although he's also doesn't really see the results, he's 1-3. I feel like he hasn't really had a easy fight in the UFC. He fought Li Jingliang. 170, he fought Jeff Neal at 170, he fought Drew Dober. He was able to get that win over Damian Brown, in which he missed weight. After the fight with Neal, he's got a chance to reset. I feel like he's got more to prove. I feel like they gave him that second contract for a reason. They appreciate his fighting style. I feel like this gives him a chance to, be a little comfortable. He switched camps. He went to Team Oyama. Let's see what he does. I feel like he's going to come out here, put the pressure on Hein, get a first-round knockout, and get back on track. Like I said, I do feel like Hein's probably the better overall fighter, but I just feel like his issues are more so with father time and his durability, and Camacho hits like a truck. So I'm going to go with Camacho by knockout.
You want to explain to them why they re-signed 1-3 Camacho but fired 8-3 Elias?
Exactly, because Camacho comes out there and he swings and he puts his life out on the line every time, man. And when you got the other guy who's out here twirling like a ballerina and, throwing a hammer fist from the outside, and he's a ring girl on the side, I mean...
Because apparently people didn't know why. Everyone was acting surprised. I was like, man, I didn't know how many fans...
Frank loses every fight, but he still gets a new contract because you know what? They're like, man, that guy fights.
I wasn't aware Elias had so many fans, you know what I mean? Look, he's a nice guy, but fighting style-wise, as far as his matchup with Frank Camacho and Nick Hein, look, a couple years ago, I think Nick Hein would weather that early storm and went out there and won the decision, but man, he's just been looking a lot older, a lot slower, and I feel like in this day and age, you can't really be a 5'6" lightweight anymore, man. You're that short. You got to be going to featherweight. You got to be going to bantamweight. But the guy's about to turn 36 years old.
He already tried to go to featherweight.
Yeah, it didn't work out the first time. It's not going to work out this time. And Frank Camacho, if you're durable, if you're smart, you'll probably go out there and beat him. And Nick Hein has one of those things. He's smart, but he's not durable anymore. I just feel like, Father Time is catching up with him. He's not as fast as he used to be. He's starting to get dropped in fights, and I'm going to go with Frank Camacho via first-round knockout. Now, next up in the lightweight division, we got Leonardo Santos. He's 16-3, and Stevie Ray is 22-8. Currently, they got Leonardo Santos minus 200. The comeback on Stevie Ray is plus 170. Well, Shaq, this is the first time in 3 years that we've seen Leo Santos fight. As you know, he finished Kevin Lee, he finished Tony Martin, beat Adriano Martins. Now he's coming back off that 3-year layoff. He's taking on Stevie Ray, who's coming off a win as well. Who you got in this lightweight matchup?
Man, I'll never forget that day he starts Kevin Lee. Oh, look, Kevin's acting cocky again, Kevin went out there with his hands down, thinking he said, he was waiting for Leo to fall, and next thing you know, he was the one that fell, and he got embarrassed, so...
And then he said it was early stoppage.
Seems like things haven't changed for Kevin Lee. But, Leo, man, like you said, he beat Rocco Martin. He beat Kevin Lee.
He didn't beat Rocco Martin. He beat Tony Martin.
Tony Martin. He didn't beat Rocco Martin. But he beat Tony Martin at 155s. He did win the Ultimate Fighter Brazil tough Duda Pons pulling out. So, he's got a lot of accomplishments. So, on paper, I would definitely see why he deserves to be favored. But like you said, 3 years off, and especially 3 years off in the division that he's in. We're not talking about, heavyweight or something. We're talking about lightweight, the best division in the UFC. So, I definitely am expecting a little drop-off from Leo. And we already saw a drop-off prior in between the Kevin Lee fight and the Martins fight. Turns out that night when him and Martins were fighting, that was two old Brazilian men out there having a sparring contest, because then Martins goes out there, gets knocked out by Cajun, and cut from the UFC. Now he's taking L's out here. And then Leo hasn't fought since. And that third round, Adriano was kind of getting street with him, man. He kind of broke Leo in that third round, which was something that wasn't happening, and because he was already, a little old prior to that, man. So now we got 3 years off, and now he's fighting Stevie Ray. Stevie Ray is a guy that just seems like his job was on the line the other day, and a lot of people think he lost to Ayari his last fight, and I disagree. I feel like that was the job of Jimmy Smith's bad commentating, man. He kept on talking about Ayari this, Ayari that, but Stevie was letting the left the entire fight. So I feel like if you actually watch the fight without any sound, you'll kind of get a better understanding of what actually happened. And I feel like Stevie looked a lot better. He looked a lot in better shape. And it's not necessarily saying Stevie's a better fighter than Leo Santos. I just feel like the line's completely off. I feel like Stevie's been fighting through these 3 years, and although Stevie hasn't had the best moments, he's still a 5-3 UFC fighter.
6-3.
6-3 UFC fighter. He's solid. This guy hasn't fought in 3 years. I felt like Stevie looked a lot better on point his last fight. He didn't go to TriStar for this one, but the fact that his job was on the line, I feel like it lit a fire under him a little bit. I feel like there's value on him in the spot, and I think he comes out here and gets a decision win over Leo. I feel like Leo's this is where you're going to really see him pull a Nova, what I like to call the Nova out here. Maybe have a good first round, but in that second and third, the footwork of Stevie, the angles, I feel like he will start to pull Brazilian stunts and possibly even look for ways out.
Yeah, look, Leo Santos a couple years back in 2015, which was about 4 years ago, the dude was a fucking badass, and not to mention he was about 35, 36 years old back then. You know what I mean? The guy's a real beast. He fought Takanori Gomi 12 years ago. You know what I mean? Maybe 20, but like, I got so much respect for him. That fight against Kevin Lee was such a pinpoint performance. He's really picking him apart with that jab. He even mixed in a blast double, took his back, knocked him out with a slip right. It was very, very beautiful. The fight before that against Tony Martin, went out there and finished him. But you guys know that Tony Martin left 155 pounds for a reason, right? You guys know that Tony Martin would gas out after the first round every single fight at 155 pounds, right? He's a completely different man at 170. So it's like, yeah, now on his resume you look, he finished Tony Martin, but it's like OAM beat Tony Martin at 155 pounds. Like, beating Tony Martin at 155 pounds don't mean shit. And he beat an undeveloped Kevin Lee, which, like, I respect Kevin Lee. He went on to fight for the interim championship, but if you haven't figured out that Kevin Lee's a total head case and a fraud, then I don't know what to tell you, man. But Leo Santos, look, he got that first round knockout. Much respect. You'd think after that knockout, the performance of his career, he's going to elevate. He's going to go on a big title run. Well, his next fight against Adriano Martinez about a year later, man, talk about a drop off, talk about a decline, talk about a 3-round sparring session where Leo started pulling that Brazilian stunt in that third round. Man, he was very gassed out. It was very ugly, and since that point, we haven't heard from him since. It's been 3 years since the last time he fought. He's about to turn 40 years old on his next birthday. And this ain't like heavyweight where you can be 40, 41, 42, go out there, get your second win. If you're 40 years old in that 155-pound division, expect the young up-and-comers to go out there and feast on your remains. And Stevie Ray, I know he's not necessarily the definition of a young up-and-comer, but the guy's still in his 20s, and he's got a lot of experience. I mean, the guy's a former Cage Warriors world champion. But I felt like when he was on that 2-fight skid, he had to make a decision that, listen, man, it's time to evolve. And he could have taken that L to Ayari, been out the UFC, but man, I saw a guy who put work in the weight room. I saw a guy who was focused. I saw a guy who went out there with a 3-round game plan, stuck to it the entire time, very disciplined, and did exactly what he needed to do. Now, on paper, Stevie actually throws more strikes than Leo Santos. So during Leo's prime, when, when he's not coming off the 3-year layoff, when he's not almost 40 years old, Stevie already threw more than him. Now, let's mix in the 3-year layoff and the fact that he's about to be 40 years old. And I see Stevie outpointing him. If this goes to decision, I think Stevie's going to win. But, man, I think there's a chance he knocks Leo Santos out, man, because you can't just be taking that much time off in a division like that, coming back in there 40 years old, and expect to just have the success you had when you fought an undeveloped Kevin Lee and Tony Martin that had no business at 155 pounds. So I'm going to go with Stevie Ray here. And yeah, he's got to look out for the world-class ground game of Leo Santos. We know Leo's a great black belt, but I'm sure Stevie knows that too. Don't let this guy with 25% takedown accuracy take you down, and you most likely win this fight. So this fight should be lined closer. I'm going to go with Stevie Ray for the upset. Now, next up in the women's bantamweight division, we got Tonya Evinger. She's 19-8, and Lina, the elbow queen Lansberg, is 8-4. Well, Shaq, someone the other day posted this clip of Mike Perry knocking out Jake Ellenberg with an elbow, and he's like, "Who's got better elbows than Mike Perry?" So I subquoted it and I said, "Lina, the elbow queen Lansberg," and a bunch of people thought I was serious. But who you got in this matchup?
Both girls are probably on their way out the last leg of their careers. Lansberg, the elbow queen, my God.
The elbow fraud.
Man, come on now. She's tough, but she's 37, somewhere around there, 36, 37. And she's really not seeing the results. Her only wins over Pudilova, in which she kind of lost that fight. Her face was in which she admitted that Lucy was the winner in the post-fight speech. And then she beat Gina Mazzani, who we know isn't very good, and we like Gina for other things, But Evinger, I feel like she hasn't seen the UFC results. But hey, man, she's been in there with Aspen Ladd, Cyborg. She's coming off an injury.
Damn, they've both been in there with both of them.
Oh yeah, that's true. They both got smashed on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like Evinger, I feel like she's due for a win here. Just skill set for skill set, I feel like she's definitely the better wrestler, definitely the better person in the clinch. Yeah, she's getting up there in age, and that can make the fight play out a little closer. And there probably is some value on Lina, but personally, I think Evinger's going to pull the win out. I feel like she's a little meaner, a little tougher, slightly better cardio, and just a little more hungrier for a win. Not saying that Lina's not hungry. She's fighting in her hometown, Sweden, but Evinger, man, she beat Arine, she beat Kunitskaya, she beat all these girls. It's probably time for her to get a win. I feel like she's just going to be a little hard-nosed and scrape out a win here.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree. The big error or big hole in Lina Lansberg's game is her takedown defense, and doesn't seem like she's made really any effort to try to patch that up. Can't get up from bottom. This whole elbow queen thing is a total myth. I mean, look, Tonya Evinger, not the best, kind of up there in age, but she's way more physical than Lina Lansberg, much more experienced, and probably more well-rounded too. So for that reason, I'll take the favorite Tonya Evinger to get a rear naked choke win here. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got two newcomers. We got Sergey Khandozhko, he's 26-5, and Rostem Akman is 6-0. Currently, they got Sergey Khandozhko. He's -165. The comeback on Rostem Akman is +145. Well, Shaq, Sergey Khandozhko was originally supposed to fight Bartosz the Butcher Fabinski. Now he's taking on Rostem Akman. These guys taking these fights on a week short notice haven't really been doing that well historically, except for my boy Casey Kenny. Who you got in this one? And Heinisch.
Yeah, like you said, we got one guy who's had a full camp, and we got one guy who's coming in on a week and some change notice. So, I automatically favor Khandozhko. The Bartos fight would have not went his way. Definitely seems like he struggles on the mat. His striking is really fundamental. He's got good fundamental kickboxing. It seems like the Rostem guy just likes to move forward. Doesn't seem very athletic, but I haven't honestly seen much of him, so I have to favor Khandozhko. I think he's gonna land some nice jabs, a spinning back kick here and there, move and just Russian coast this victory. I feel like Sergey is gonna get his first UFC win here.
Yeah, I agree, man. I mean, look, like we already said, these guys taking these fights on a week short notice into the UFC hasn't been translating. Rostem Akman's never fought anything in his life. He's fought a bunch of guys with losing records, and then when he finally fought a guy with a winning record, that guy wasn't necessarily on a hot streak himself. And with Sergey Khandozhko, he knows what it's like to win. He knows what it's like to lose. He's had over 30 pro fights. He's seen it all at this point, man. So I got to go with the experience of Sergey Khandozhko. Mix that experience with the fact that the guy's had a full camp for this fight. So I'm going to go with the Russian as well, Sergey Khandozhko. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got Daniel Teymur. He's 6-3. And the Korean Falcon, Sung Bin Jo, is 9-0. Currently, they got Sung Bin Jo -140. The comeback on Daniel Teymur is +120. Well, Shaq, big actions come in on Daniel Teymur, man. The line's dropped over 30 cents. You think people realize that this is that this is the brother? This is not David Teymur?
Guys, it's not his brother. It's the shitty Teymur, not the good one. So just make sure you guys know it's not his brother, not the guy that beat Jakar and Lando and Nick Lentz. Like, it's the guy that, loses every fight. But yeah, this is gonna be a good fight, man. Teymur, let's just be honest here. Personally, I don't think he's UFC caliber. Never has been, and he never will be. I think this is he got signed on the fact that he probably got signed around the time his brother was getting these 50K bonuses for his fights with Lando, and his little bro told him, "Please sign my big bro." He took me to the gym when I was little, So I feel like so we talk about his 3 UFC fights against Danny Henry, who, in my opinion, that guy striking is terrible. I feel like his chin was sky high in the air, and Teymur had every chance for those first 3 minutes to knock him out, and he couldn't do that. And then the second Henry fought back and hit him with a shot, he turned away, looked at his corner, and started looking for each and every way out. Got dropped with body shots. He got taken down, completely dominated on the mat the last 2 rounds. It was a hellacious beating, and it seems like he hasn't gotten his confidence back since. He fought Julio Arce, did nothing for 2 rounds. Julio just fought safe, and then choked him out in the 3rd round. Then he fights Fishy, and then same thing, man. It gets worse. It got worse, honestly. He had moments in that fight too. Fishy was slipping off his back. He was standing on top of him, not doing anything besides trying to kick his legs. And eventually Fishgold got out of it and tapped him out in the 2nd round right away, man. So I feel like Teymur is showing that he's not really UFC caliber. Even when you look at his local scene fights, he just hit the guys one time, they fall down. But not to mention about the times where he's fighting these bums and he's getting knocked out, and then the ref stops the fight, and then he's able to come back and get a submission win. The guy's a complete fraud. I feel like Sung Bin Jo might not be the best guy in the world, but he's way better than Teymur, man. He's actually a real MMA fighter that earned his spot here. I think he's got better stand-up, better cardio for sure, more ways to win, better jiu-jitsu, way bigger, taller. I feel like nothing's going to change. I feel like the first 2 minutes of the fight are going to be entertaining, but then eventually Sung Bin Jo is going to hit him with the straight right and TKO this guy. When he gets on top, he'll elbow his head in, and that'll be that. And Teymur will get his walking papers once and for good.
You think that after Teymur gets knocked out here, he can protest to the ref and maybe have them restart the fight like in that local fight he had?
He'll be out unconscious this time.
You guys need to go back and watch this local fight that Daniel Teymur had, because first of all, the guy has zero business in the UFC. His whole 6-0 record to get to the UFC is complete bullshit because he got knocked out stiff on this regional fight. The ref steps in, calls the fight, perfectly great stoppage, opponent celebrating. But since it was in Sweden, and apparently these guys are a little bit connected, Daniel started complaining. They got a restart on a fight that had already been called off due to knockout. And of course, Teymur's opponent was like, what the fuck, got taken down, got subbed. So, it was one of those things where it was like the corruption. It was total bullshit. Guy has no business in the UFC. Goes in there against Danny Henry, landed a couple shots on the tall man with tall man defense in the first 3 minutes, gassed out, got his ass beat the next 2 rounds badly, got broken in a way where his confidence never recovered. Next fight against Julio Arce, that was a clinic. 3rd round finish. And then against Chris Fishgold, it's like, hey man, here's your chance against a guy who has a suspect gas tank. Here's your chance against a guy who is also a total fraud and a former cokehead coming into the UFC that, probably doesn't have any business here either. And then Teymur gets on top of Fishgold. It's like, hey man, here's your chance. Start pounding on him. And guess what? Guess what Teymur decides to do? He's like, instead of pounding this guy out and keeping him, staying on top of him when we know this guy has zero get-up game and is not going to get up from bottom, let's drop back for a leg lock. And, that's all I got to say. Not only is he a shitty fighter, his fight IQ is horrendous as well. Here against the Korean Falcon, I know people are going to bring up that one fight that the Korean Falcon had where, that one guy was getting off on leg kicks, and hey, he was getting off on leg kicks, but Teymur doesn't have the gas tank to do that for 3 straight rounds. He might do it for 3 minutes, but after that, it's going to wane. And not to mention, if you're going to bring up how that one guy was teeing off with leg kicks, don't conveniently leave out what Sung Bin Jo did to that guy once he decided to turn up. When Sung Bin Jo turned up on that guy, it was some violence. And that guy he beat, by the way, was one of Korean Zombie's proteges. So he destroyed that guy right in front of Korean Zombie. And it almost seemed like Korean Zombie should have hit up my boy Sung Bin Jo and been like, hey, come join the team, because that was some Korean Zombie type shit.
On Dong Young Kim's team.
And, Dong Young Kim's his hero. But, So I mentioned how, he might be susceptible to leg kicks. Well, where's a good place to address that part of your game? How about we go to Tiger Muay Thai? So since that fight, he went to Tiger Muay Thai January of this year. He's been there 5 months. I mean, if that's not a place that's going to teach you how to check leg kicks or return with counters of your own, then I don't know what place is. I feel like this kid's made the proper adjustments. He's addressing his situation seriously. Not to mention, he's just the longer, better fighter. He's a bigger guy, more well-rounded. His ground and pound is vicious. He can win by submission. He can win by knockout. He can accumulate. And he's just playing tough, great cardio. I see Sung Bin Jo getting a second or third round knockout here. Now, next up in the lightweight division, we got Damir, the Bosnian bomber Hadzovic. He's 13-4, and Christos, the Spartan Giagos, is 16-7. Currently, they got Damir Hadzovic minus 170. The comeback on Christos Giagos is plus 150. Well, Shaq, Damir Hadzovic opened minus 275. Now he's minus 170. Tons of action coming in on Christos Giagos. Do they know that, Christos, the Spartan, is just a bodybuilder?
This is another fight where I feel like one guy's getting overestimated here, and that's Christos Giagos. Damir Hadzovic, yeah, he did have some up and downs early on in his UFC career. He lost to Alan Patrick, Mairbek Taisumov. Whoa, big whoopee. He got knocked out by Taisumov in his debut. And then Alan Patrick, they say that Damir has got bad takedown defense, and I disagree because I feel like it's improving. And what do Marcin Held and Alan Patrick have in common?
They're both jiu-jitsu world champions.
What's Christos Giagos never gonna be in his life?
A
jiu-jitsu world champion. The guy goes face first when he's trying to get takedowns against Pugness. You know what I'm saying? So, I feel like people are overestimating Christos' skill set. I feel like Damir's clearly the better fighter here. Although he doesn't have the record to necessarily support those claims on paper, man, this guy is getting better fight to fight. Like we said, since the Patrick fight, seems like when his job was on the line when he fought Nick Hein in Germany, I don't know how that fight was a split decision, but he broke down Nick Hein with that jab, ended up dropping him really bad in the third round. And if you look at Nick Hein's face at the end of that fight, it was really brutal. And then he goes out there and Polo Reyes, where the fight was a pick'em, people still weren't on Damir like that. And people were saying Polo Reyes had better power and gonna knock him out. And he broke down Polo Reyes on the feet. He, showed new skills in his game with that takedown, and he pounded Polo Reyes his head into the mat, man. The guy's showing that he's getting better. He's showing that he's a class above these guys now. That they like the Christos Giagoses of the world. So, I feel like this is going to be Damir's coming out party. Christos, yeah, he's got good athletic traits. He's got power. He's got a good double leg. But I don't feel like he can maintain any of those things throughout the course of 15 minutes. I feel like the guy has bad cardio. And I feel like just technique for technique, Damir is way smarter. Christos doesn't use his head in there. He's terrible. Although he might get a takedown here and there, what about when Pugness is fully mounting him? What about when he's getting taken down, So I just feel like they're two different calibers of fighter. And I feel like Damir's going to show that here on Saturday night with a knockout.
Yeah, look, Christos Giagos is so overhyped in this spot, it's ridiculous. You're telling me because he went there and beat Hirota, who literally everyone that's fought Hirota has beat?
Because he did good versus Charles for a second. No, he didn't. Charles beat him on the feet.
So because he got finished in under 1.5 rounds like he was supposed to, now the guy's, a live dog here. Oh, man. He didn't get finished in the first minute. He got finished in the first 7 minutes. It's like, oh, man. Christos is improving so much. Listen. People, the reason they're picking him here is because they saw that he was able to take down Hirota, which, if you haven't figured out how to take down Hirota yet...
Real quick, Hirota lost to fucking Rodrigo, damn,
And not to mention, Hirota was getting hood with Christos in that third round, you know what I'm saying? Tell me why, people are like, oh, he's this great American wrestler, which, first of all, no, he's not. But tell me why when Christos is going for those takedowns, he goes face first, belly down into the mat. It's...
He's a border... Christos Giagos is the guy that you beat to make it to the UFC. You know what I'm saying? He's the...
Yeah, look, Christos Giagos is going to have a lot of success in a Tough Mudder competition. He's going to do great in his CrossFit. You know what I mean? He can go run the Ironman. But as far as inside the UFC's octagon, just because you have big muscles and a six-pack doesn't mean that you're a good fighter. At least with Damir Hadzovic, yeah, he got taken down 1,000,000 times by Alan Patrick, a fucking jiu-jitsu world champion. He got taken down by Marcin Held, a jiu-jitsu world champion. He got knocked out by Taisumov, a guy who would fucking launch Christos into the 10th row. So I just don't really see what the big deal is. Because here, I feel like Damir is the more technical fighter than Christos Giagos. I feel like he's more composed in there. And why is Christos, flailing to his back against Hirota in that third round? Someone's going to be like, oh, but every fighter gets tired. Listen, not every fighter gets full mounted by Hirota in that third round.
Not versus 38-year-old Puglis.
Like, you're supposed to finish that guy, or at least 30-25
You were the one that was getting mounted.
Someone's going to be like, but Volkanovski didn't finish him. Go back and watch that fight. Volkanovski did finish him. The ref just didn't step in. I mean, he knocked him out and woke him back up with a follow-up. You know what I mean? That's, props to my boy Pugness on that one. But the Christos fight was way closer. I just think Christos is a local-level fighter. So, and that's no disrespect. That's just my assessment. So I'm going with Damir here by default. I just think he's better everywhere, man. I think the jab's going to be there, and I don't think he's going to get taken down by Christos, maybe more than once. And once they hit that fatigue state, I see Damir teeing off on him. I'm going to go with Damir via third-round knockout. Next up in the featherweight division, we got Chris Fishgold. He's 18-2, and Makwan Amirkhani is 14-3. Currently, they got Chris Fishgold -115, and Makwan Amirkhani is -105. Shaq, these two have been talking a lot of shit. And it's going to go down this Saturday night in Stockholm. Which way you leaning?
Yeah, I kind of felt like the mind games are going to be a big factor in this fight because, Makwan, when he comes out of his hole for one time a year, he likes to get emotional with these guys, man. You saw what happened when him and Knight fought. Now Fishy's really mad, man. Makwan said some mean things to him on the internet, bro. So, let's see if Fishy defends himself and knocks Makwan out, So as far as how they match up, Makwan's got the good wrestling credentials. Fishgold's a black belt. But although Fishy being a black belt, man, he's had moments where he's been reversed a lot on that mat. Even prior to the UFC and Cage Warriors, you watch his fights with Hair on Web, he's out here getting reversed.
What regional scene is Hair on Web from?
He's from Alaska.
You're telling me an Alaskan regional scene guy's winning rounds off Fishgold?
Yeah. Reversing him. Yeah. You got Teymur shaking him off his back. Black belt.
Which Teymur?
The shit Teymur. When a black belt gets on Teymur, the shit Teymur's back, it's supposed to be over. You know what I'm saying? And eventually it was, but there should be no slip-offs, no nothing. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying that he's a fake black belt, but
who's he a black belt under? I just want to know.
I don't know. But, Fishy, he's strong on the feet. It seems like Makwan's getting a little better. He has been. He took like 6 amateur boxing fights in the midst of his last fight, so that's what he's been up to. He's trying to get his hands better. And low-key, I feel like his hands have gotten better. Now, I know he did get dropped twice against Knight. That definitely happened, 100%. But just the overall picture of things in comparison to what his hands used to be to what they are now. Yeah, you see him out here. He always had the right hook, but now he's out here throwing, straights after that right hook now. And now that the fight, he's took these 6 amateur fights, maybe he comes with something else, man. And that's where I feel like Fishy, of course, he has the power edge. He definitely commits more to his punches, like we saw in the Calvin fight and even on his local fights. But how long can he keep that up? Fishy wins most of his fights in the first round, and generally, historically speaking, you stretch Fishy out, he struggles. You know what I'm saying? So Fishy's probably going to start strong here, probably be a little emotional, probably try to take Makwan's head off. And he might win that first round, but the second Fishy gets tired, he turns into a really sloppy fighter. I mean, you saw what happened in that Teymur fight. That was really low level. That it should have been one takedown fight over with Teymur, you know what I'm saying, with a real black belt. So I feel like Makwan's gonna win rounds 2 and 3. I feel like he's the more efficient fighter in rounds 2 and 3. I feel like you're gonna see improvement in his hands from here on out. Fishy's gonna gas really bad in rounds 2 and 3. And I feel like Makwan's going to take him down whenever he wants. I think he's going to out-scramble Fishy on the mat, and I think Makwan's going to get the win here.
Someone please let me know who gave Chris Fishgold his black belt. I'd love to know. But as far as his matchup's concerned, the wrestling isn't even close. Makwan Amirkhani, I know because he's got this funny personality that people kind of discredit his fighting abilities, but dude's got a fucking serious body lock, a serious entry. And if you don't believe me that he's a pretty damn good fighter, go watch that fight with Arnold Allen, because I'm pretty damn high on Arnold Allen, undefeated in the UFC, about to fight Gil Melendez. And Makwan had a nice split decision fight with him. That was a very good back and forth fight. But man, like you mentioned, he's been improving his striking. I know against Jason Knight, when he's got his hands up in the air and and they're talking shit to each other, he got cocky, he got caught there. But man, he was still catching him with some right hooks in that fight. I felt like, he did wobble Knight. I felt like, man, Makwan has been putting in work with his stand-up. But I got to put more emphasis on how impressed I am with his wrestling, because going into this, I kind of thought it was this joke. I kind of thought, let's fade Makwan. But man, the motherfucker can tie up. He's strong as hell. He can wrestle his ass off, no joke. And that could be a path to victory here against Chris Fishgold. Look, Chris is going to come out hard in that first round, but like Shaq already mentioned, he historically does slow down. That fight with Calvin Kattar, I mean, Calvin didn't even know who the hell the guy was. Calvin was just feeling him out, letting him throw every single thing he has, and then when Calvin decided it's time to throw that 1-2 down the middle, he knocked him out with the first punch. So, I mean, then after that, you put him in there with Teymur. It's like, hey, you don't got to fight the top 15 Calvin Kattar no more. Here's Daniel Teymur on a silver platter, and it's like, Chris, go finish this guy in the first round. Then all of a sudden, it's Teymur that's on top of Fishgold. And like I mentioned earlier in my Teymur breakdown, Teymur could have stayed on top, started pounding on him. But as you know, Teymur does what Teymur does. Teymur decided to drop back for a leg lock, and they just got into a very low-level fight. And then Chris Fishgold is shooting for these takedowns from a mile out, and he goes face first into the mat like Christos Giagos. I mean, it was some of the ugliest stuff I've ever seen in my life. And look, unless Makwan pulls a monumental stunt here, I feel like he's going to take over the later rounds and grind this one out, man. So I'm going Makwan Amirkhani via a very wrestling-heavy decision here. Now, next up in the light heavyweight division, we got Jimmy the poster boy Manuwa. He's 17-5, and Alexander Rakic is 11-1. Currently, they got Alexander Rakic minus 210. The comeback on Jimmy Manuwa is plus 175. Well, Shaq, a lot of people are saying Alexander Rakic is the top prospect at 205 pounds. Now, I know Johnny Walker and Mikhail Oleksiejczuk might have something to say about that, but that being said, he's got the very dangerous Jimmy Manuwa in front of him. You think he gets past this test?
So it's a tough test for Rakic. You know, Rakic, like you said, allegedly he's the number one prospect at 205, but he's out here getting dropped by Clark and shit. But twice, you know, Lord Mikhail and Johnny Walker would never get dropped by such a man. That's all I'm gonna say. But Rakic, yeah, I mean, look, he's one thing I like about Rakic is it seems like he's got a good team behind him. You know, it seems like they come up with very good game plans. It seems like he's very disciplined. And it seems like he'll stick to that game plan, and he has no issue going 15 minutes. He's very efficient. I mean, look at his numbers. You know, he's a very efficient fighter, and it definitely shows. Jimmy Manuwa, I feel like, definitely is a step up above Francimar Bahozo. Who? The guy that lost to John Vellante and who's taking L's in Bellator and shit. Who? And not Bellator, but PFL. And then you got Then he fought Justin Ledet, who thinks the Earth's flat, and then he fought Devin Clark, man. So you know this is a big step up, not too big of a step up, but like a noticeable step up. You know, this ain't Jimmy Manuwa, although he's definitely lost 3 in a row. He lost to Jan Blachowicz, he lost to Volkan Ozdemir and Thiago Santos, you know, guys that are, you know, in that top 6 in the 205-pound division. Rakic is still proving himself. So, you know, I feel like Jimmy's durability is definitely the issue here. I feel like it's kind of like Nick Hein. It's not really skills that are the issues for them. It's just the durability, man. They're old now. Man, you know, I can't even compare Rakic and Thiago Maheda Santos and Ozdemir at the time. I haven't really seen that one-punch KO power from Rakic yet, but I just feel like Rakic is probably going to play this safe, but he's going to get tested, man, because Jimmy walks forward the entire time, and Jimmy's really big, but the thing is, Jimmy just can't simply take the punches that he used to, and with that style, you have to be able to eat, you know, the return shots. So, you know, I have to favor Rakic, maybe not minus 210 type of favorite. You know, I would kind of personally line it, you know, minus 160 Rakic. But, you know, I feel like he's probably going to get the win here just due to Manuwa's bad durability.
Man, very interesting fight. Huge step up for Alexander Rakic from Francimar Bahozo, Justin Ledet, and Devin Clark. Now he gets to fight an actual top 10 guy in Jimmy Manuwa, but he's catching him at the right time, man. You know, Jimmy Manuwa has fallen on some hard times, but one thing about Jimmy Manuwa, power never leaves. The dude's got a nasty left hook, man. I mean, you saw when he hit Corey Anderson with that thing to the temple, Corey just folded, man. He just went flying, and even some of Jimmy Manuwa's older highlights, the OSP fight, even prior, so Jimmy Manuwa's a badass, and if Alexander Rakic thinks this is some kind of joke, he could take a nap as well. But that being said, Alexander Rakic, he's got that good team. He comes in with a game plan. They do a lot of film, and I love this kid's leg kicks. I love the way he circles on the outside, throws some very hard kicks. He's starting to use his wrestling these days like you saw in the Ledet fight. So he's becoming somewhat of a well-rounded fighter. Now, I know he got dropped by Devin Clark twice. He might have some of that Euro kickboxer chin, but you know, and I know that interview where he's saying that, you know, he didn't have his boxing coach with him. That's why his boxing wasn't as sharp. But like the bottom line is that he got hit on the chin and he went down. And
He's got kickboxing chin.
I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with having Euro chin, my man. You know, Joanna and Jacek got it too, man. So Carolina got it bad. We don't got to talk about that. But listen, man. If Jimmy Manuwa lands that big left hook, I don't care how done he is, he can knock out Rakic. But that being said, the long-term battle will be won by Rakic here. He's going to break him down with the leg kicks. He's going to mix in takedowns. And by that time, when they get back up to the feet, I think Jimmy is going to be a little bit more tired. And that's where Rakic can kind of let it go, show off some of that kickboxing experience, and further cement his claim to be the number one prospect at 205, according to a lot of people. According to me, Johnny Walker and Mikhail Oleksiejczuk are the two top prospects at 205. But Rakic, we'll put him in the top 5 prospects for sure. He's very talented. I'm excited to see what he does. I think he comes through for the win here. And let's match him up with Johnny Walker or Mikhail next. Now, next up in the light heavyweight division, we got Volkan No Time Oezdemir. He's 15-4, and Ilir the Horseman Latifi is 14-6. Currently, they got Volkan Oezdemir minus 120, and Ilir the Horse Lord Latifi is plus 100. Shaq, you think Volkan Oezdemir is going to get back on track after this 3-fight skid, or you think Ilir Latifi is going to get back on track here?
People are under the assumption that Volkan's last fight was a robbery. You know, I disagree, man. I feel like Reyes, you know, arguably won that fight when you really watch it. Oezdemir kind of ran into the same problems that he always has, you know. It seems like he gets off to a good start, or he's very easily, you can definitely finesse him into using a lot more energy. I don't know if Latifi's a guy that's capable of that, because we know that's Anthony Smith's specialty, and we know that, you know, Reyes is a guy that, you know, uses a lot of, you know, just, he's 6'5", you know, he's got a lot of long weapons, Latif, and he was able to, you know, keep the points fairly close between the two. And now Latifi's a guy that, he likes to back himself up. He likes to just land these big shots, and if guys wobble, you know, he'll capitalize. But when you really look at who he's doing it against, I feel like Oezdemir's had definitely the tougher road. You know, anytime Latifi's really step up in competition, he's gotten not blown. He got knocked out by Ryan Bader. He got blown out the water. Corey beat his ass. He knocked out Sean O'Connell. Hey, Sean O'Connell's a millionaire. I can't hate. He won $1 million last year. And then he beat Tyson Pedro, who was 5-0. Like, Tyson Pedro sucks. And then he beat OSP, who's on his way out.
Who fought Orthodox.
Who fought Orthodox with his chin sky high. And, you know, he was able to catch him. That's where I feel like Oezdemir, man, that guy, lately, man, he's been through the gauntlet, man. He knocked out Manuwa, then he had to fight Cormier, then Smith, a giant, then he fought Reyes, a 6-foot agile guy.
6'5".
6'5" guy. So I feel like Latifi's one of his easier matchups in a long time, you know. So I feel like he's going to get the win here. I feel like Latifi's best chance is to clip him with something upstairs. But when I look at Oezdemir's chin and the shots, you know, there's a chance he can't take those shots anymore. But, man, Oezdemir is durable. Like, that guy could be completely gassed out, taking shots by Smith, you know, got these big guys. And, you know, Latifi definitely has the power, but when he tries to start wrestling, he gets more tired, and he's not the toughest guy out there, man. So I feel like you're going to see Latifi, you know, swing heavy early, but in rounds 2 and 3, you're going to see Oezdemir continually move forward, you know, not take no for an answer. And it's not going to be a pretty fight, because Oezdemir is not a pretty fighter in those late rounds. But, you know, people say Ozdemir's got a bad cardio. In this particular matchup, I feel like his cardio is better than Latifi's. So I got to go with Oezdemir here. So I think Latifi, unfortunately, isn't going to get a win in Sweden again.
So did you see OAM's fighting Sarukian?
Yeah.
And OAM will be out the UFC pretty soon.
Staying at 55s?
Yeah. So, you know, Latifi's kind of like the 205 Woodley, you know, that style. I mean, you know, he throw one big right hand. He backs himself into the fence, lands one big right hand at a time. If you're Sean O'Connell or Hans Stringer or, you know, one of these guys, you might go down. Tyson Pedro, like, come on, guys. And he's allegedly a Swedish wrestling champion. I mean, look, the guy hits hard. You can't take that away from him. He's got the Horse Lord gimmick, so you got to love him for that. You know, a 5'8" guy fighting at 205 pounds. I respect the guy. Ilir Latifi seems like a cool guy. I'd hang out with him. But as far as picking this fight, Volkan's got the more output. Volkan's fought the tougher level of competition. Volkan's back is against the wall. He needs this win badly. I think he's going to land more shots than Latifi. I think he's going to keep this fight upright, and I think he's going to avoid the big bomb from Latifi. So Don't be surprised if Volkan knocks him out, but I'm going to go with Volkan Ozdemir via decision just by landing the more shots over the 3-round period.
Hey guys, Shaq here. Things are heating up for us over here at Best Fight Picks in 2019. For this weekend, UFC Stockholm, Sweden, Gustafsson vs. Smith. We're giving you guys the option to buy the one event VIP package and get the next event free. That's UFC Stockholm in Sweden and then UFC 238 Cejudo vs. Moraes. We're also giving away the 1 month VIP package. Buy one, get one free as well. Let's cash these bets. BestFightPicks.com.
Main event of the evening in the light heavyweight division, we got Alexander Gustafsson. He's 18-5, and Anthony Lionheart Smith is 31-14. Currently, they got Alexander Gustafsson minus 330. The comeback on Anthony Lionheart Smith is plus 270. Well, Shaq, Anthony Smith said he wanted some time off after the John Jones fight, but then they offered him something he couldn't refuse, which was Alexander Gustafsson in a main event in Sweden. You think Gustafsson gets it done at home or what?
Yeah, it's gonna be a good fight. A few years ago, I'd say, these guys are definitely far apart. But like I said early on in the show, Alexander Gustafsson is 3-4 in his last 7 fights with wins over Blachowicz, Glover Teixeira, Jimmy Manuwa. So when Smith, since in his UFC run, I think he's 8-3, 9-3, something like that. So I feel like honestly, in current states, like I said, actually. Back when Smith was fighting John Jones, I even said I feel like guys like Smith and these guys are possibly a little tougher than the Gustafssons of the world these days. And not saying that you can compare how the fights went with each other, but one guy got their head smashed in and one guy went 5 rounds.
One guy had a chance to win.
One guy laid a complete egg, did absolutely nothing for 3 rounds and wasted everyone's time.
After saying he was going to kill the guy.
After saying you already beat him, after saying all this shit about, the steroids, this and that, which Anthony didn't bring up, but, all that shit. And that's what he's the Kenny Florian of 205. So Kenny Florian won pretty much the majority of his non-title fights, but it's not sit here and act like Gus has won every non-title fight either, especially in Sweden, So look, overall, yeah, Gus is the better fighter, skilled fighter, 100%, but none of that matters. We see better fighters lose all the time, man. Perfect example, Andrade and Namajunas the other day, So I feel like this line is definitely way too high for a guy like Gus, who, like I said, really hasn't done much in the last 3-4 years. I mean, yeah, he beat Glover Teixeira. Look, Glover is a nice guy, but Glover will never be in the top 5 at 205 ever again. He'll get these nice little wins over these prospects like Kudalaba and Roberson, and that was a good performance by Gustafsson, but Anthony would knock that guy too out in the first round. If you're in the top 6-7 in the UFC, all those guys would knock out Glover Teixeira. And this one over Blachowicz is good, but at the time, Blachowicz was out here losing to Pat Cummins, struggling with Igor the Duke, and then Jimmy Manuwa. So what's Gus really done in the last few years, man?
Or lost another title fight.
He lost another title fight. How long can he hold that number 2, number 3 place? I feel like it's going to go downhill from now on. I feel like, Gus in this fight, he's going to get off to a good start, probably feeling real good with his jab, but he's going to have to keep it together for 5 rounds because I don't think he's going to finish Anthony Smith straight up. I'm not saying he's not capable of it, but I just don't think he's going to. I feel like Smith's going to be here for 5 rounds and Gus is going to have to win a decision. I don't think he's John Jones. I think, he thinks he's John Jones at times, but I feel like the second that Anthony lands a right hand on Gus's chin, I feel like he's going to start to have doubt. And I feel like it's probably going to come somewhere in that 3rd round. And I feel like once that starts happening and you see a little blood, then you're going to see the tide of the fight just completely change. I feel like you're going to start seeing Smith go forward, and you're going to start to see him break Gus in his home country of Sweden. He's going to get the 5th round stoppage. I feel like he's going to get a big upset here.
Oh, look, Gus lost another title fight. I mean, look, as far as his matchup is concerned, Alexander Gustafsson is definitely the better fighter in terms of skill. It's just a matter of where's his motivation at. Like, does he still want to do this? After you've lost 3 title fights, I mean, you got to know that unless DC and John Jones retire, you ain't touching that belt ever in your life. And not to mention, even if they do retire, he ain't touching shit. So let's just get that out there real quick. But as far as him and Anthony Smith, look, I love Anthony Smith's mentality. I respect his resume, his toughness, everything. But man, he does some things that I'm just like, dude, like he'll just let people tee off on him and there's a method behind the madness. He's waiting for you to gas out so he can take over. But when you're dropping rounds to guys like Hector Lombard, and I'm not talking about Lombard in his prime, but when you're dropping rounds to Lombard, Andrew Sanchez, all these guys, it's like, man, I gotta believe that someone like Alexander Gustafsson, who does have the better footwork, does have the more output, can go out there and get up on big enough of a lead to where this hits the scorecards, he can win that home country decision. But the thing is, one little fuck up, one little, start to slow down, you start to show a little weakness to a guy like Anthony Smith, you start huffing and puffing, and he will tee off on you. He will start throwing those straights down the middle. He will start throwing those knees. He will, you know what I mean? He'll start spinning here and there. He'll start throwing high kicks. So if Alexander Gustafsson, coming off that title fight letdown, isn't really training as hard, kind of just trying to headline this fight at home and go out, and retire fighting in Sweden, it could end badly for him. But I just got to go with what I've seen in the skill sets. And I do think that Gustafsson gets off on big enough of a lead to win the first 3 rounds. And then I'm not necessarily sure if he's going to win the championship rounds, but I have a feeling he's going to be able to hang on even if shit gets sketchy. So I'm going to go with Gustafsson to win a split decision here. Well, now we got to hit up Kyle Marley for the Big Marley Minute. And joining us now on the Big Marley Minute is Big Marley himself. Kyle, the week off is finally over, and UFC Stockholm is going down this Saturday. How's it going?
Hey, not bad, man. Excited to get back to printing money and look forward to doing it with you, bro.
Likewise, my friend, because in the main event, we got Alexander Gustafsson taking on Anthony Smith. Both guys coming off title losses to John Jones. Who do you think gets back on track? And more importantly, who do you think scores the big points in DraftKings?
I think this is all Gustafsson here. It is going to be an all-in fight for me. I won't have a single GPP lineup without this fight because it is 5 rounds, and whoever wins, I think, just is going to be on that 25K lineup. So it'll be in all my lineups, but mostly with Gustafsson. I think he's just better everywhere, can do whatever he wants here, can win it a decision on the feet, can win a decision with takedowns, could get takedowns, get a ground and pound stoppage that way, could get a knockout on the feet. There's just so many ways for him to score highly, and I think he's just the more dominant fighter. So he's my favorite play on the board, and I'm going to have a lot of them this weekend. I think you can stack this fight in cash, but Gustafsson will be a lock in my cash lineup. And yeah, I think he gets it done probably 3rd or 4th round, ground and pound finish.
So you think basically he's going to go out there and put on a show start to finish? You don't think Anthony Smith is going to win a round in this fight?
Nah, I really don't. No.
So, co-main event of the evening, Volkan Oezdemir is taking on Ilir Latifi. Both guys looking to get back in the win column. Who do you think gets it done, man? Are you going with the taller Oezdemir or are you going with the short Latifi?
I'll take Oezdemir here. But it's really, with it being the co-main event, I think it's going to get a good amount of ownership on both sides, somewhat decent names on both sides. So overall, it's going to be in more than half the lineups in the field. So I think really the best play here is to maybe fade this fight. I don't see it scoring highly unless there is a knockout. Both guys got power that could end this fight in a knockout, and then they will score highly, but you're relying on that knockout, likely for both sides. Latifi could go out there and get takedowns, but Volkan won't. He's not going to be the first person to take Latifi down. So I just think you're strictly relying on a knockout, and with more than half the field having this fight in there, you're not really getting a whole lot of leverage on that. So I think the fade is the way to go here, but I'll take Volkan as my pick to win. I just think he's the better striker, and he'll be able to keep this fight on the feet and win a striking decision.
So Alexander Rakic is taking on Jimmy Manuwa. A lot of people think Rakic might be one of the top prospects at 205 pounds. However, his last fight, he did get dropped by Devin Clark twice. We know Jimmy Manuwa can knock out anyone. Do you think the Brit Manuwa is live for a knockout upset here?
Yeah, for sure. If he wins, it will be from a knockout. And if he gets a knockout, he will be on that 25K lineup. So he's for sure in play. He's the best fighter, best striker Rakic has ever fought. And he's definitely a better striker than Devin Clark. So he's for sure in play, but mostly for GPPs because you're chasing that upside if he does get the knockout. I just don't think he's going to get the knockout. I do think Rakic is the better fighter, especially at this point in Manuwa's career. And if Rakic wants to go out there and get takedowns, then he's really in no danger at all in that scenario. It's just, does he want to go out there and strike and really build his name off of Manuwa, or does he want to go out there and play it safe? If he plays it safe, I like his upside a lot more than relying on the knockdown and finish. But either way, he has 100-point upside. So I like Rakic here, and he's only 8,900. So, I mean, I like him more than some of the people in the 9K range. So I love this fight. It's probably my second favorite fight on the card to target in DraftKings, and it does have the highest fight doesn't go to decision line. So load up on this one, but my pick is Rakic.
So Chris Fishgold is taking on Makwan Amirkhani. It's interesting because you got the black belt in jiu-jitsu and Fishgold versus the wrestling champ Makwan Amirkhani. We know DraftKings guys love takedowns. Do you think Makwan Amirkhani is going to get it done here?
I don't know, man. I think Fishgold is the better fighter on the ground, but Amirkhani is the better fighter at getting it to the ground. So I don't know. This is going to be a fun one, and I hope it does play out with a lot of grappling because that's the way this is going to be the most fun. But if it is stuck standing, I think Fishgold's got him outgunned there. He's just going to be the fighter throwing at a higher volume. I think he throws heavier punches too. He's just the better overall striker, in my opinion. So in a super close 50-50 fight on the ground, I'd rather just go ahead and take Fishgold, who I feel has a much bigger edge on the feet. And if he can get it to the ground and in top position, I think he can get a submission. So I like Fishgold here. He's actually my free bet of the week. I think I got him at minus 112, minus 113, something like that for one unit. But let's go Fishgold.
So you got Kyle Marley giving out free bets right here, right now on Half the Battle. If you want the paid bets, go to bestfightpicks.com. And Kyle, Damir Hadzovic is taking on Christos Giagos. Now, interestingly enough, the line opened minus 275 for Hadzovic. Currently, they got him 9,100 in DraftKings. A lot of action coming in Christos Giagos' way. I got to know where Kyle Marley stands on this one.
See, I like Hadzovic to get the win here. I think he's just a better striker, and this fight will probably mostly play out on the feet. It's just that 9,100, man, that's just too high for a guy who's not going to be going out there getting takedowns. You're going to need him to get a finish to pay that off. So I don't love that, and I'd rather just go ahead and throw Giagos in my lineup if I had to use this fight, because if Giagos wins, it's going to be through a wrestling game plan, and that's what we do like, as you mentioned, in DraftKings. So if he can just get, 2 rounds, 1 from takedowns and pull out a decision, even if it's not high scoring, he can still put us on the 25K lineup just with any win at 7,100. So I'd rather have Giagos, but I do have Hadzovic winning the fight, so I'm not going to be loading up on Giagos. For me, it's more of a fade fight. It's just more dog or pass one for me.
So Daniel Teymur is welcoming Sung Bin Jo to the UFC. The Korean Falcons 9-0. And a lot of action's been coming in Teymur's way. I feel like people almost think that this is his brother David Teymur, but it's actually not. It's Daniel Teymur. So from a DraftKings perspective, are you trying to take the underdog Teymur here, or do you think the 8,800 is where it's at here with Sung Bin Jo?
Another great fight to target both sides of. Fight doesn't go to decision is minus 245. So I think either way, the winner's going to score highly. I just think Teymur's going to have to get it done in the first round, or else he might gas out. And the longer this fight goes, I like Bin Jo to get the job done. I actually like Bin Jo just more overall as a fighter. I liked what I saw from him, and I think the line's a little bit too tight. I think he should be more of a favorite than he is. So maybe that's going to take away from his ownership because he is 8,800. So if that's the case, then yeah, give me some Bin Jo here. I think he's going to get the finish at some point, likely second or third round. And if that's the case, he's going to outscore that 8,800. But he's going to have to weather that early first-round storm from Teymur. And if Teymur finishes him in the first round, he's going to be at lock for that 25K lineup. So great fight to target both sides of, but give me Bin Jo.
Last but not least, Leo Santos is making his return off a 3-year layoff. He's taking on Stevie Ray. They got Leo Santos 9,200 in DraftKings. We know he knocked out Kevin Lee in the first round. Do you think he gets a similar result here off a 3-year layoff?
Nah, I don't want to rely on the jiu-jitsu guy getting a knockout. But I do think he's live for the submission. It's just at 90, what did we say, 9,200. Maybe that won't even get it done, even if it is a first-round submission win. So at that price, I really can't get too much Santos in my lineups. And if I had to play this fight, I'd rather have Ray because he's only 7K. Pretty much any win from him could pay that off. I mean, even if he gets a 60-point decision win, maybe that could put him on the 25K lineup because there's only one person cheaper than him. So if Smith doesn't get the win and not many other underdogs pull it out, then Ray could win somebody 25K. So I'd rather have him. I just do think Santos gets the win. So it's kind of like Giagos' situation where it's a dog or pass for me, but likely I won't have a whole lot of this fight in general.
But out of the two dogs, which one do you like more?
I actually would say Giagos because I think he has a higher floor in a loss. If they both lose the way I see it going, I think Ray gets submitted and Giagos loses a decision. So I would rather just go ahead and take the floor from Giagos, but that only matters for a cash game. So I guess I'd say Giagos is my cash game punt.
Well, that's why you are the DraftKings guy for Half the Battle. Kyle, it's going down this Saturday afternoon, or morning actually, in Stockholm, Sweden. Your bets and your write-ups are available at bestfightpicks.com, and they can follow you at Big Marley 3.
That's right, man. Let's get this money. I'm finishing up the write-up right now. We'll have it posted later. Bets are ready to go. Let's start printing this money and enjoy the fights, everyone.
And that's why Big Marley is the DraftKings guy for Half the Battle. Shaq, now we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So what is the fight to watch for UFC Sweden?
My fight to watch is going to be Chris Fishgold versus Makwan and Americani. Both guys are talking a lot of shit. Both guys, there's a lot on the line for them. You know, Makwan's got to keep riding this wave. If he loses this fight, it's a big setback, man. The Mr. Finland hype train is completely done, you know. And Fishy, you know, if he wins this fight, he solidifies his place in the company. A lot of people hyped him up before he fought Calvin. They were putting him on commercials, and so we'll see what he does, man. I feel like that's going to be the fight to watch with all the animosity.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be tuning in for Fishgold versus Makwan Americani. For me, my fight to watch is Alexander Rakic versus Jimmy Manuwa. I mean, not only is this fight going to be very exciting while it lasts, but one thing I didn't mention in my breakdown of Rakic that I really like is his striking ratio. The guy lands 5.31 strikes per minute, but only absorbs 1.61. That's a brilliant ratio. And with a guy like Jimmy Manuwa, who's going to be in your face the entire fight while he's awake, that's just recipe right there for chaos, and I feel like these two are going to stand and bang until one man falls. So for that reason, Jimmy Manuwa versus Alexander Rakic is my fight to watch. Well, Shaq, who is your fighter to watch for UFC Stockholm?
My fighter to watch is going to be Damir Hadzovic. This is a spot for him to come out and show everyone what he's got and why he's a class above these guys like Christos, Giagos, and the Polo Reyes of the world.
Yeah, Damir Hadzovic flying under the radar. The line dropped over $1. A lot of action on Christos Giagos. Damir Hadzovic is definitely one of my fighters to watch. My fighter to watch is the Korean Falcon, Sung Bin Jo. Anytime you get a fighter with the Korean something in front of their name, whether it's the Korean Zombie, the Korean Superboy, now you got the Korean Falcon, these guys are guaranteed excitement. These guys come to fight every single time, and usually when they win via something very devastating, whether it's breaking their opponent, whether it's a highlight reel knockout, a submission you've never seen before. And I feel like Sung Bin Jo's got the perfect opponent here against Daniel Teymur to go out there and continue that Korean legacy, man. So I'm going to go with the Korean Falcon, Sung Bin Jo, as my fighter to watch. Well, Shaq, we did it. It's going down this Saturday in Stockholm, Sweden. They can check out our bets at bestfightpicks.com. Been on a hot streak this entire year, and that's going to continue this weekend and next. Remember, buy one, get one free. Buy one event, get the next event free. Buy 1 month, get the next month free. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at bestfightpicks. Follow Shaq at MMAGenius05. Subscribe to Half the Battle on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher, Spotify. Our Instagram, Best Fight Picks Official, bestfightpicks.com. Thank you guys so much for the support. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.